The movie Mope is based on a true story, and we're going to learn all about it. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I hope you're having a good day today. It's always a good day when I get to kick back and watch new movies coming to VOD because I have so much time to watch these movies now, which is really exciting to catch up on some independent films that you might have missed. I'm excited today to talk to Lucas Heyne, director of Mope.
Hello.
Lucas, how's it going?
It's going great. How you doing?
Good. I saw your film Mope it was at the Sundance Film Festival.
Okay. Yeah.
This was that your premiere of the film?
Yeah. It was the world premiere.
You had such an amazing cast, and I remember seeing the Q&A. David Arquette is in the film. Mm-hmm. You put together this incredible cast. It's based on a true story.
Yep.
Tell me what about this true story? And I remember reading about this, and somehow it was on the local news, but this is a crazy true story. I think it's better if you tell us about it, and then what intrigued you to want to turn this into a movie.
So this happened in Los Angeles in 2010, and it's a true story, obviously, said about two low-end porn actors who were struggling to make it in the porn industry. And they found work as mopes, which a mope is a lower tier porn actor who does scenes like bukkakis, gangbangs, like anything where you need like a bunch of dicks, a bunch of guys, and basically they're not the guys who are going to ever be the top porn stars like a Lexington Steele or John Holmes. They just don't have the look, the penis size, or just the mentality or work ethic to get there. And so it's a story about two guys in particular, Steve Driver and Tom Dong, as they struggle to make it, and it ends very tragically. I don't know if I should give away exactly what happens in the end, but it's pretty, you can easily Google it, but it's quite a twist in the film. But basically it goes into dark territory. It's a true crime story.
Well, it's I guess you could describe mopes as they're kind of like extras in porn films. Sometimes they get to participate like a line here and there, or whatever a line would be considered in an adult film. But there's sort of at the lowest tier you could possibly be in the porn arena. I'm actually glad you didn't give it away. I mean, it's a horrible true crime story. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. If you repeat the details of the story to anyone, they're like, no, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. So I can understand like why you were intrigued by the story.
Yes.
Because it's sort of the flip side of the coming to Hollywood and I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
But the adult version of that story. So
for me, I have a sympathy for people who are dreamers, who try to do things that are seemingly impossible. I think anybody who goes into film has to have a certain bit of that attitude. Like you're trying to do something that the odds are against you. And what I found intriguing about Steve Driver and Tom Dong, and especially just mopes in general, is they're people who have this big dream, and there's something about them that prevents them from making it. And I think that's the existential fear that every artist has, that your dream is to do something, but you're not good enough. And like Tom Dong has a line in the movies where he says, "I suck at the thing I love to do." And that basically is the essence of what made me sympathize with these guys. And that's what intrigued me about the idea to begin with.
How did you get David Arquette to be involved in the film? And first of all, I love David. He's been a recurring guest on the Howard Stern show, which I know a lot of people know him from acting, and I do, but I love when he's on Howard Stern. He's so honest. He has a lot of fun things to contribute. He's a no BS guy. Like at least from, knowing what I know about him from being on the show. What was it like to work with him on Mope?
Easy. I mean, he is, a lot of people say this, but he is an incredibly kind, down-to-earth person. Like I could say it was effortless working with him. He was cast by my casting directors, Kelly Roy and Morgan Robbins, and they brought him, they suggested him, and then I talked with him and we just got along. And I had one conversation with him prior to the shoot where he was basing his character on a friend of his, or like a former friend, which I'm not going to name, but it's a well-known person. And and then he showed up on set and he was just great. Like he just, he really is a generous, kind person. That's all, throughout Sundance and even through promotion of the film, he's just, everybody likes him. It's just, there's something about him that's just great.
Well, he was, if I recall correctly, I mean, he was at that Sundance screening and participated in the Q&A. I happen to know one of the actresses that's in your film, Annie Cruz. Annie Cruz, who's a friend of mine. I don't know Annie from the adult world. She's an adult film actress, Annie Cruz. I know her oddly from going to comic conventions. She goes to San Diego Comic-Con, LA Comic-Con. She's a cosplayer. I don't think she's not involved in the adult film world now, but she does appear in your film.
Yeah.
And I will say this, what I really loved, the best part about seeing Mope was seeing Mope at Sundance and seeing, because people at Sundance like to think, it's the all the elites of the indie film world. And we're going to see these very high-minded, films that are changing society and they're socially relevant and there's all this great. And your opening scene of Mope does not hold anything back.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say it's shocking, but it was great to, so I want to ask you about that opening scene and then also just about working with Annie Cruz, because she's a badass. I mean, she's just awesome. I've known her for years.
Which one? I'll start with Annie Cruz.
Start with Annie.
Annie's great. She actually, knew Steve Driver. She had met him. And so she, when she read the script, she was like, this is pretty similar to what he's like. It's very accurate. And she was just a fantastic resource in terms of capturing a sort of realism we were aiming for. And I could always just go to her and ask her, like, is this realistic? Is this how it would be? And beyond that, she's just a really nice person, incredibly easy to work with. She's just great. I love everything, every scene I put her in, she was just fantastic. And she, has a lot of insights. And I think that was very important for me to be able to capture a sense of realism, and she was a big help.
And then, that opening scene.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like it just sets the tone for the whole film, because once you see what happens in the opening scene, and I feel like you should prepare people for it a little bit, but that opening scene kind of sets the whole thing up. Like it's okay. Things are, if this is the opening scene, buckle in for the rest. But I just really appreciated it, seeing it in that environment, because I do feel like some people at Sundance, they just get a little full of themselves a lot. So I like to see especially this was played the midnight movies, which is the perfect setting for it. And I just feel like it was a swift kick in the balls for a lot of people. I don't know, not for me, but I thought it was fantastic. So tell me about that opening scene, and at least preparing everyone for that, because it really does go for it.
Okay. Yeah. To preface that, I'll start that Sundance, the midnight programmers, it's a great team, but Adam, Charlie, they take risks on films and they love to champion small films. Mope was a film that was submitted via the website with no kind of connections, and they really like to champion daring indie films, and that's why they showed the film. And so the opening sequence basically came about from me. It's essentially a recreation of a bukkake. And it's a recreation of the bukkake scene that Steve Driver and Tom Dong met. And it's very realistic because it was shot at a real studio with real porn actors. So everything about it is real except for the actual act. And that's because I was trying to create realism. So it came about because I was originally in the script. It was there was a scene where Steve Driver was meeting a director and he was kind of vetting him. And I was like, this is kind of boring. And I had read about a similar thing where a bukkake shoot would have like a red light and it would turn green once all the actors could go in and perform. So that's where that came from. And then I actually went and visited a set with the actors, and I saw Jim Powers, who plays himself in the movie, actually lead the guys through a chant like, "This is bigger than Monday Night Football. This is bigger than the Super Bowl." And he was hyping the guys up to go perform. And I'm like, that has to be, I could never make that up. And so then I rewrote the scene so that it was, basically like that. And then it was just so surreal when I brought Nathan and Kelly to the real Bukkake shoot. And an amazing detail was that they had tickets. I couldn't put this in the film, but they had tickets for who could finish. So once you finished, you completed, you got a ticket, and then that means you got paid. But there were only 20 tickets and 30 guys. So there was like a race to finish, basically. And there are just so many surreal details like that, just from visiting. And all the guys that you see in that scene, pretty much maybe 70% of them are real performers who do bukkakes. And the director character in it, Jim Powers, in real life Jim Lane, he directed the real Steve and Tom in their first scene. So it was immensely helpful to have all these guys tell me like, oh, this is how it is, or it's not this way. And so that was vital. I think that's why it feels grimy and realistic. The audio's cutting out. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you. I can hear you perfect. Sorry about that.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's that scene was just a great, shocking way to open the film.
Yeah.
How much of the other? I mean, I know this sounds weird to ask, but and we rarely get an explicit on our podcast, so I guess we're gonna have to mark this one explicit. I think.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to mark it. But
Sorry.
what other research did you do to make sure that things were realistic?
Well, beyond like every single thing that you see in the movie, is based on something I saw. Like there's a scene in the movie where involves ball busting, where it's guys who have a fetish of women kicking them in the balls, and that scene is directly based on something I witnessed when I went and met the real Eric Long, and so I had cooperation from pretty much everybody who's alive in this story, be it Chris Rochelle, Eric Long. I call him Eric Long, but Eric Jover is his porn name, and even Stewart-Jarrett's dad. And so a lot of it's just because stuff they told me, and they just through research. So a lot of the craziest, strangest, most surreal details in the film are based upon research, and it can be challenging for people to realize how surreal and crazy this world is. But it's a very different world. It's full of libertines and people who just they're outlaws. They just don't. They have their own insular society, and they don't really care what people think from the outside.
Well, this is a weird question to ask, but pretty much all production has been shut down, including adult film production.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I have heard rumors that for sex scenes in movies, I'm not talking about adult films, they're all going to do it like CGI. Have you heard that?
I've heard a lot of times I've just heard they're just not going to shoot them. And before COVID, it was going to be, like there were so many issues with, like with Me Too, there became a lot of things were being considered, and they were going to have like sex monitors on set that could help, almost like a stunt choreographer, like make sure the scene is done right. But now I think it's with COVID, there's just no safe way to do it. And I think directors, I've heard like they're going to do visual effects with crowd scenes. Like to, cause they can't shoot like 100 people in a crowd, but I just think you won't see sex scenes. I don't think you'll see them at all.
Yeah. I mean, like lately in Hollywood, it's been kind of sexless in terms of, I mean, I've always enjoyed like films like Last Tango in Paris, where sex is a big part of the story. And we haven't seen movies like that lately. Would you say that in some ways Hollywood is afraid of erotica in a sense?
1,000%. Right now, there's so many legitimate issues that are happening. And I think it's making people question, like, how do you do sex scenes in a way that 100% all the actors are comfortable and they don't feel like they're getting pressured into it. And those are definitely legitimate questions. But I think part of the byproduct is that people are just afraid to go down that territory because there's a lot of landmines. You have to make sure that you're being very responsible and making sure that everyone is comfortable. And I think that when you hear all these stories of like directors pushing actors and stuff, and it just, those days are done. Like people are, I think people have become wise that, you know, there are notorious stories about Last Tango, and it's making people look at, re-question stuff. I think it's unfortunate that you can't explore sexuality in the same way, but, you know, I think it's just a very raw time right now, which I understand, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just miss like movies may, you know, everything has to be broad. I don't agree with that. And I don't want to mislead people. Your film has sex in it, but it's not a big part of the movie. It is sort of set against the backdrop of that world, but the story is, I see it as like, this is going to sound like a crazy comparison. I don't know if anyone's, it's a lot like Showgirls in the sense of like, I'm going to go for my dream. Right. I mean, Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls just sort of seems like it's set in the against the backdrop of, you know, these dancers, but that's not all what the film is about. It's about a woman pursuing her dream. It's about guys pursuing their dream to be in the world of adult film, you know? So it's just like Boogie Nights is set against the backdrop of the world of adult film, but there's not a lot of sex scenes in Boogie Nights. And I would say that yours, so I don't want to mislead anyone listening or watching this to think that this movie has a lot of sex. Sex is in it. That opening scene definitely kind of like gets you ready for anything else crazy that would happen. But it's not all about sex. It's more about, it's a tragic story, really, more than anything. Without giving too much away, what has been the you know, after people have now seen this film, how have people reacted to it, including some of the people that, you know, were involved in, or the people that were surrounding everything involved in that case?
Sure. The real people, like Steve Jobs' dad was at the Sundance premiere, and he loved the film. He thought it was an accurate depiction of what his son went through, and it tried to give I tried to give a nuanced look at Steve. You know, Stephen, he did some terrible things, but there's factors that I think we have to address to figure out why people like lash out like this. And the other people involved in the film all really enjoyed it. It's a, you know, as wild as it is very accurate to what happened within, you know, there's certain confines and narrative storytelling that you have to change things, but it was very accurate in many ways.
Well, and as dark as the subject matter is, you do a great job with the tone of, there's parts that are funny. I mean, I especially seeing it with that midnight audience. They I mean, they laughed in the right spots, and that's got to be really satisfying for you.
Yeah, I think, you know, this was a tiny film that was made in like 15 days, and I kind of just made it in a vacuum where I just wanted to tell this particular story. So I didn't expect it to premiere at Sundance and the midnight. So it was definitely a great surprise. But it was very interesting because there's so much to the story. I'll talk to people who are like, this film has nothing funny in it. It's just a dark drama. And there's some people that get both of it. I think for someone to enjoy the film, you definitely have to tune into what it is, where it's this dark nightmare where there are some funny things in it. And that maybe you'll feel uncomfortable laughing, but it's almost something how I felt when I was researching it. Like there'd just be these grim things people would tell me and I would see, and it was kind of funny, but you're just like, this is really funny, but sad at the same time.
Yeah. It's definitely has like an uncomfortable funny, right?
Sure.
Like it's an awkward, like uncomfortable funny.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, it's not a Will Ferrell movie. Sure.
No.
You know,
cringe comedy. Yeah, like it's weird because I've had people tell me they think it's hilarious, but I think it's more, it depends upon your taste as a viewer. You know, my intent making the movie is really just to illuminate these guys' lives. One of my weird influences to the movie, like their characters were like George and Lenny of Mice and Men, Willy Loman, Death of a Salesman, just these dream people who are destroyed by their dreams. And so those are unusual references to put in this context, but that's kind of how I felt about those guys. Like I had access to Steve's suicide letter. And it's 17 pages, so a lot of his dialogue and things he says are just verbatim from that letter, or just, you know, the same idea.
Wow, that's amazing. Lucas Heyne, I got it right this time now. Lucas Heyne.
It's all good. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I just want to say, Mope, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's shocking true story. It's something that you need to seek out. And I know it's on VOD.
Yeah.
It's on VOD everywhere.
Right now, yeah.
Okay.
And
cool.
I also just want to say that I have been a huge Film Threat fan for a long time. So
really?
Since I was a teenager. And so, like, you know.
Oh my God.
And so, yeah, no, it's thanks for having me on. It's an honor. And so I'm a huge, you know, it goes back into the beginning of my love for independent film.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And Lucas, congrats again on the film, dude. It's fantastic. And it's one of those movies that we saw at Sundance that year. We never stopped talking about it. It was just like one of those that, like, we could not stop talking about it. So congratulations. Thanks again. And
thank you.
Everyone watching this, go check out Mope. Lucas, thanks again. I hope you come back with your next film.
I would love it.
You got to come back on the podcast.
For sure.
Awesome. All right. Take care, man.
Bye.
Later.